Okay guys, this is going to be another fun video. This video I'm going to be talking about what I think the worst comic book films are, and just in general, what do I think the worst comic book films are. I think when it comes to the pantheon of the worst comic book films ever, the pantheon for me, and then I'll get into what I definitively think is the worst comic book film that I've seen on purpose. You gotta throw in Catwoman. You gotta throw in Batman and Robin. You gotta throw in X-Men Last Stand, or not? I guess X-Men Last Stand and X-Men Origins, Wolverine, whatever that one was called. You gotta put in the Superman 3, Superman 4. I mean, what? And then Spider-Man 3. You gotta throw in there. I think that's like the pantheon of what everybody can unilaterally agree to be just the worst. I guess Howard the Duck too. Howard the Duck is probably the worst, but because that's not even that's like a let's throw in a duck. Like, it's so a period piece of that time in some ways. But that's even in the 80s, that was not okay where they went into with Howard the Ducks. But let's kind of throw Howard the Duck aside for a second when we do look for the worst of the MCU. Or not MCU, why did I say that? Comic book films. So, I guess Fantastic Four, okay, so I'm going to say 5, I'm going to give 5 of the worst and then battle them out, like this film versus this film, till we get one. So the 5 I'm going to pick: Fantastic, Batman and Robin, Spider-Man 3, Catwoman, and then I'm gonna throw in Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, whatever that one's called. Those are probably the 5 I'll pick, and I better have Batman and Robin in there. I think I already did. So I'm gonna start with Batman and Robin versus Catwoman. So what are the flaws in Catwoman? Catwoman's flaws is just you take Catwoman and make it a round, kind of a really goofy premise in some ways. Where it's like, I think this idea where it's like the way, I guess it's not that the premise is goofy, it's that the execution is goofy. Where it's like, you have this idea of this Catwoman is stuck on these voiceovers, and she's mad about this the villain's over a lotion, and the Catwoman outfit is weird, and it's just camp. It's just how Howard the Duck is really much of a product of what you can do in the 80s. This is that era of comic book films in the early aughts, early 2000s, that are just shitty comic book films, that are just those ones where they want to be so faithful to comics, but they don't end up doing that at all. Instead, it just comes off campy. This is prime early 2000s comic book film. I mean, prime, because it's you wanna see a genuine, good, amazing portrayal of the character. And like I said, you don't really get that, but instead you get goofy action, goofy characters, goofy things that drive the plot, and just goofy sequences. Like the whole basketball sequence, just all of it. It just is so forgettable and so bland, where it's I feel like they just said this was a spoof of the Catwoman from 1989. I would be like, oh yeah, or not 89, 92, Batman and Robin Returns. But if you said that this was a spoof of that would be okay. But no, they're actually trying to take this film seriously, and that doesn't work for me. But Batman and Robin definitely takes the cake when it comes to these two, because it's just ultimate goofy, where they want to have Arnold Schwarzenegger doing cold puns, freeze puns, and it's this humor. The humor applies to the lowest common denominator, and it's they saw what they did with 89 Batman, 92 Batman, 95 Batman, and say let's just go on a whole new direction, and they did just that. So campy bat nipples. Everything stands out as so bad and so awkward that even if a moment seems like a potential of glimmer of a good sequence, if it's followed by a sequence right after that. And it's funny because it's like this film is almost, it's so bad it's good. In that sense where it's like, it's a comedy. I don't care what you say. Bat credit cards. I mean, like, they're just trying to, I guess, expand the mythology. And like I said, I think this comes out in the late 90s, but closer to the 2000s, where it's like they're trying to be so faithful to the comics. They fall so off from that. So off from all of that on every single level. Every single level. I mean, it's just so campy. Where it's like, did they seriously have nowhere else they can go in this film? So yeah, that definitely takes the cake. Then Fantastic, and then Spider-Man 3. As I think the worst part about Spider-Man 3 is emo Peter Parker, because that made no sense. I get this idea of maybe he messes with your brain just a little bit. Okay, that's fine. But it just, I feel like, for me, became excessive. Where it's like, he's trying to just, do all these weird things, get in fights, just to embarrass MJ, and I just felt like that was the ultimate weirdness, because it's not Peter Parker, no matter what. This is, I don't even know, alien version of Peter Parker. This is, I guess that's technically what they were going for, but even then it didn't really land. And then another thing I realized about this film is we talk about how Star Wars, particularly the sequel trilogy, always contradicts itself. This Spider-Man trilogy contradicts itself a lot. Particularly this, I'm talking Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, because it's like you have this idea of Ben Parker, of Uncle Ben getting killed by this character, and then nope, it's not this character, it's this character, and then Peter's. It's like it's so weird because like they keep changing it. It's like now this guy, like the guy we saw in Spider-Man 1 was the killer. Then it was Sandman, and then Sandman didn't do it on purpose. He was pressured into doing it, and it's like I think they keep contradicting itself within even the film. And so it kind of, when you got to that twist, it's just like one of those twists where it didn't work. It just seems like you're contradicting what you already previously said. So I think there's so many bad things, and just having so many villains and so many plot lines that just don't fit definitely put it to be one of the worst comic book films. But Fantastic definitely takes the cake. Fantastic, or Fantastic Four, whatever you want to call it, 2015. I think the beginning sets up things that could be really nice, but then the last half is all rushed. Because I think this film kind of set up to be kind of a cool 2.5 hour, 45 minute film. I feel like it would have worked nicely that way, where kind of the first third of it is all the way until they go to space. Because like when you see like the 2005 Fantastic Four, they go to space like almost immediately into the film. But I kind of like this idea of they're building up this whole idea of the rockets and playing to the really science fiction-y aspects of it. And what I would have liked is they truly do develop them as heroes. A bunch of different cool action sequences, a bunch of cool things you do with them. But instead, they become the heroes and then immediately have to fight Doctor Doom, and that's it. It's literally like they get their powers. Oh, Doctor Doom's running around. Don't even have a second to practice. Let's just go into it. And it's just weird. It's extremely weird. Where it's like, the film is, I believe, like an hour and 45 minutes. The first hour, literally probably about an hour into the film, is where they get their powers. Well, I'm sure like maybe like an hour into the film, you see Reed Richards stretched out. And then like you have 45 minutes of them then of Doctor Doom, like literally Doctor. So if I tell you that that the four of them get their powers an hour into the film, well, guess what? Doctor Doom probably doesn't show up till the 30-minute mark, and that's our villain. And you could just tell so much was cut out of the film, where I think they tried to do a grounded approach to this character, and similarly to a lot of other things in this film, it just failed. And the whole, where it's like they set up things, but it's like we didn't come here for a sci-fi film that like the last 45 minutes is just them fighting an evil person with no explanation, no powers, no motivations, nothing. It's just that, I don't know, there's just something about it where it's like you watch the first hour and then it just goes off the wall second hour. It's like, I don't know how I describe it. It's like, I guess an interesting way you could have said it was like you watched A New Hope. I think a good analogy was like for Star Wars. If you watched A New Hope until they left Tatooine, which was about the hour mark, I'd say. Maybe a little bit less. But literally they leave Tatooine and then then the second part, like the last 45 minutes, is the final battle of Return of the Jedi. Picture just watching the film up until they leave Tatooine and then watching the final battle of Return of the Jedi. That's a good analogy where it's like, when you do that, you all of a sudden go from, oh, we're setting up all these ideas, all these places to go. They leave Tatooine. We're getting on the mission. And all of a sudden, Luke's freaking fighting Vader and stuff. And they're trying to blow up the Death Star and all this crazy stuff. This is kind of what it felt. It's where it's like you have this idea of, okay, they're getting their powers. This is where they should pick up the pace. And then I blink after they get their powers. It's like, what? They're already fighting Doctor Doom during the final battle? What the hell? And like all these characters die, and it's so rushed. And so that's definitely worse than Spider-Man 3 in spades. And then what was the other one I put down? I put 5. And now I can't remember. Oh, X-Men Origins, Wolverine. I mean, come on. The CGI is horrible. The direction of the story is horrible. Where it's like they can't decide if it's like an X-Men film or a Wolverine film. You know what I mean? Or like they'll go from a sequence of them of a group of X-Men characters together fighting, and then they'll go to like a mission, and then like it's weird because like the first act is like this mission with a bunch of different X-Men characters. It's just so convoluted and so messy, where you have this idea of, oh, Stryker runs an X-Men team force with Deadpool, which is perfect casting of Ryan Reynolds, and then they just ruin him at the last act. Just ruin Deadpool character, which made Deadpool 2016 even more exciting when it came out, but that's beyond the point. So, I think this film, is it worse than Fantastic? No, but it's just so messy and so clunky where it's like, there's like a love interest who dies but then fakes the death with blood, and then Stryker wants revenge on Wolverine for some reason. Then they have the whole project where Wolverine gets his adamantium, and then he joins the X-Men with weird de-aged Patrick Stewart, and all these clunky messes. Now it comes down to Fantastic versus Batman and Robin. I'm going to say Fantastic is worse. And I'll tell you why. Because Batman and Robin is probably, as a Batman film, worse than Fantastic Four is a Fantastic Four film. But Batman and Robin is one of those films where it's so bad it's good. Fantastic is, it's just so bad. There's a difference. Where it's like, I'd rather it's so bad it's good than it's so bad it's awful and bad, it's unbearable, it's boring. So that's my ultimate ideas. We can all agree they're both absolute garbage. But we can also agree that Batman and Robin is just, you can look at it as a comedy aspect, where it's like Batman, when you look at actually a legitimate comic book film, I guess Batman and Robin is worse. But it's just on a genuine film enjoyment level. Force, like, I just can't enjoy. I can't enjoy because, like, nothing they have in the first hour has any meaning. It's just meaning. It's just like, let's go straight into the final act. And I don't know. For me, it's just so messy and so clunky and just so horrible. So yeah, that's kind of where I let all that stuff lie. Stay tuned for more videos coming right at you.